This video will contain graphic imagery as well as spoilers for the film Get Out. One of the best movies of the last decade is Jordan Peele's 2017 film Get Out. Other than the film being full of commentary on the country we live in, it is also a superbly constructed work of art on Peele's behalf, combining an Academy Award-winning script with fantastic direction. These meld to create some of the most memorable scenes in recent history, in particular the hypnosis scene. Today I want to break down this scene and examine what makes it so distinctive and also look at how it interconnects with the story at large, beginning with a quick overview of the scene. The film follows Chris Washington, a black man, visiting his white girlfriend Rose Armitage's parents' house for the weekend. On the way there, they hit a deer which Chris looks at with empathy. Once there, Rose's parents learn that Chris smokes. Missy, Rose's mom, offers to cure his addiction through hypnosis, an offer which Chris kindly declines. That night, Chris goes outside to smoke, and after being scared by the mysterious groundskeeper and housekeeper, he goes in when he runs into Missy.
Do you realize how dangerous smoking is?
Who he agrees to sit with. Missy then slowly hypnotizes him as he tells her of the night his single mother died. When Chris was a child, he was at home at night when his mother died in a car accident, and now Chris feels guilty for not having called anyone because he was being paralyzed with fear.
What do you do?
Then Missy uses the hypnosis to lead Chris into a state where he's now physically paralyzed. She then tells him to
Sink into the floor.
Wait.
Sink.
and thus into the sunken place, a mental realization of his fear, before she closes his eyes and Chris wakes up in the morning with a start, leading us to... The scene in question serves initially to provide the audience with more of a background for our protagonist. Chris is haunted by the death of his mother and the night in which she died. He is haunted most by how he was unable to go after her, or call help when he was sitting and watching TV, paralyzed with fear. This results in Chris blaming himself for the death of his mother. Even more so because, as we learn later on in the film, Chris's mother survived the initial accident, but only died because nobody was looking for her. He was then forced to grow up and become a man early on. For this reason, in the beginning of the movie, Chris empathizes with the deer that he and Rose hit in the car. In that scene, he goes and looks at the deer, thinking of his mother dying alone. He empathizes with the deer's paralysis, and this becomes his biggest fear, the fear that he will not be able to save himself or those he loves. The beginnings of Chris's backstories are learned through the hypnosis scene. Character is the most important thing to focus on in the film, and the backstory and development of Chris makes the scene feel vital to the film as a whole, while also having a lot to say, bringing us to its... The film Get Out contains themes mainly of the oppression of black people, although the way this film deals with these themes is much subtler than most of its kind. This is mostly felt through the party scene, a scene in which the Armitage family disguise the showing of Chris to all their friends before his body is auctioned off for a brain transplantation as a formal gathering. During this party, Chris meets with many people, all of which talk to Chris about being black in the only way they know how to relate to him. One retells of his professional golfing career and how he was able to meet Tiger Woods.
Gordon was a professional golfer for years.
Oh, kidding? Well, I can't quite swing the hips like I used to, though. But, I do know Tiger.
Oh, that's great.
He then meets a woman who feels how strong he is and asks,
So, is it true? Is it better?
Next, Chris meets with a man who talks about how
Fair skin has been in favor for the past, couple of hundreds of years. But now the pendulum is swung back. Black is in fashion.
Lastly, Chris meets with a man who will end up buying his body for the brain transplantation. This man is a blind art dealer interested in Chris's photography, and in particular, being able to have his eye.
I want your eye, man.
None of these racial interactions are aggressive or at least purposefully negative, as can be seen in many other films, which is intentional. Based on Jordan Peele's director's commentary, these sort of interactions are not uncommon occurrences for him. People do not think they know how to interact with a black person, so they talk with him about their minimal knowledge of his culture that they know about, instead of talking to him like he is just anybody else. This is all just a front to cover up the real situation happening in the film, in which the Armitage family sells black people's bodies to their white friends for brain transplantations. All these scenes play into the theme of the oppression of black people in America, including the hypnosis scene, leading us to a scene just like a film should have 3 acts. Act 1, the setup, begins the scene. In this case, the setup would be Chris walks inside the house, Missy catches him and invites him into her office, implying she might hypnotize him. Act 2 is the confrontation. This is the middle of the scene, taking up the majority of its runtime. In terms of this scene, Act 2 would be Missy slowly hypnotizes Chris using the memory of his mother's death to bring him into this state of hypnosis. Act 3, the resolution, ends the scene. In the hypnosis scene, the resolution would be Chris is paralyzed by the hypnosis and Missy tells him to sink into the floor, which he does, leading him into the sunken place before she closes his eyes and he wakes up in Rose's room in the morning. What I find to be impressive is when a filmmaker crafts a scene that could function as a metaphor for the entire plot, which could easily be said in reference to the hypnosis scene. As we know, our movie begins with Chris coming home to his girlfriend Rose's house for the weekend. This is signified through Chris walking into the house at the beginning of the scene. Next, Chris meets Rose's family and gets to know them, signified in the moment that Missy catches Chris. Throughout the majority of the second act, Chris is being tricked into thinking that his visit is something that it is not. He believes he is just meeting the family and going to a party, while he is actually being hypnotized by Missy, then auctioned off to their friends for a brain transplant. He only stays because he loves Rose, who he does not know is in on it as well. This is represented through the slow process in which Missy hypnotizes Chris in the scene. Chris resists at first, but then he is controlled more and more by her just telling her what she wants to know about his mother's death. Something that actually happens throughout the film. It is not until towards the end that we hear the entire story of what happened to Chris's mother. By the time Chris realizes he is being hypnotized, it is too late. He is now paralyzed and helpless in the sunken place. This is a representation of the climax in which Chris realizes the truth. But it is again too late. In the hypnosis scene, Chris is put in the sunken place and Missy closes his eyes and he wakes up with a start in bed in the morning. This represents Chris's escape, an escape in which he uses a buck to kill Dean, Rose's dad. The buck representing the male counterpart of the deer. The responsible father figure that Chris had to be due to his father not being there. He is no longer paralyzed and helpless. He is instead able to take action and escape, bringing the entire plot and his arc full circle, a circle that is represented through a simple scene early on in the film.
Do you realize how dangerous smoking is?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. I truly do love the movie Get Out and was glad I was finally able to talk about it on this channel. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button below and please consider subscribing to my channel. Each subscription means so much to me and keeps me excited to make more content. Also, I read all the comments I get, so tell me what you thought down below or tell me any theories you had about Get Out, and I would love to have a discussion with you. Also, check out my Twitter at bagelbrand, which is where I post about movies I've been watching and updates on coming videos for the channel. Also, you can follow me on Letterboxd at Taylor Denham. Letterboxd is where I post all the movies I watch with a 1 out of 5 star review for each. Again, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one.